Okay, next we're going to get into lighting. In our design, of course, we have to determine, the light fixtures or the style of light fixtures, even down to the specific light fixture that you would like to use in the design. Sometimes those are things that are left up to the home's potential occupant, and sometimes, depending on how you go about the building process or the design process, you may decide that yourself. And the way I use them typically is just as a placeholder. I don't get too specific with the light fixtures that I use, other than with the style of light fixture. And then, of course, later on, when it comes to actually designing the building, we would get more in depth with what fixtures we're going to actually use, and it just depends on what's popular at that time. But the style of light fixtures are pretty reliable. Ceiling fans with or without light fixtures. Ceiling fans, can lights, recessed can lights, are also pretty consistent over the years. And the same with, just general everyday surface lighting as well. The only new thing on the market is our LED lights. We have LED lights that we can light our home up with now. You guys may have them in your home already. And they can be a little bit different in terms of how much wattage they actually use compared to how much wattage they're equivalent to in normal incandescent type lighting. And that's what this little formula goes for. There's several formulas out there, some of them more complicated than this one, also more specific than this one. And of course, I'll show you that formula probably next year when we study a little bit more about lighting. But for now, what I want to do is just use this, this real easy formula. There's a couple of abbreviations we need to know. RL stands for room length. RW stands for room width. 1.5 stands for normal lighting multiplier. 2.5 stands for task lighting multiplier. 60 watt equals a 60 watt lamp, or what you may refer to as a light bulb. In the industry, they refer to it as a lamp. Okay, so the formula is room length times room width. Okay, which is essentially the same thing as, getting the area of the room, length times width, times 1.5. Okay, and then you divide that by 60 watts, and then you get the number of 60 watt lamps for normal lighting. Okay. The next formula just changes the variable right here. The task lighting multiplier is what we're using. So again, length times width times 2.5, and that would be used, say, in like a kitchen or a shop where you're going to be working with small parts and things like that. Divided by 60 watts, and then that would be the number of 60 watt lamps for task lighting, preparing food, working at a desk, sewing, hobbies and crafts, things like that. And then remember that if you are using LED or fluorescent lighting, the lamps are rated with a wattage equivalency. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if they are listed like that in Home Depot. So we're just going to go to a Home Depot site. Okay, and we are going to, let's say, look for LED lighting. Okay, and here's some light bulbs. Okay, so here we go. This particular light bulb is a 60 watt equivalent. They call it an A19 non-dimmable. And if I remember correctly, that 19 stands for how many watts it actually burns. But let's look down into the specifications. And I'm glad I'm showing you this right now, because you'll have to do this a lot. You'll have to go to Home Depot and look up things, or whatever you like to go to, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it. And you may even end up going online to the manufacturer's website to get information for your design. But here we just need light bulbs. So we're going to look at these LED, call them Eco Smarts. And I'm going to get down here to the specifications and see if that is in fact that E19. Actually, that's a shape code, so I was incorrect. But it will tell you somewhere, even on the package itself, how many actual watts or not how many watts, it's a 60 watt equivalent, but it'll tell you how many actual watts it burns. Here we go. Energy used, 9 watts, equivalent to a 60 watt standard incandescent light bulb. Okay, so that's really 9 watts compared to 60 watts. You're getting the same amount of light as you would get from a 60 watt incandescent. It's costing you much less to actually use that kind of light. Okay, so that's where we're at. So we would consider these in our calculations. We would consider these 9 watt light bulbs. We would consider them as part of our 60 watt formula. Okay, so going back to our formula here, real simple. If whatever the area of our room is times the 1.5 or 2.5 divided by 60 watts will tell us how many light fixtures that we should have at that equivalency of 60 watts. Now, going back to a design factor, talking about design, typically there's more light fixtures in a room than someone actually needs. If you look at any modern designs, they'll have a ceiling fan, which will hold about 3 light bulbs. Then, of course, they may have some recess light cans that recess into the ceiling, anywhere from 4 to 6. And then they may even have some floor lamps as well. Now, all of those are for different purposes. And, you know, they each produce a different type of lighting for different purposes, and also different moods of lighting, such as your dimmers and things like that. So, I mean, yes, you can overdo the lighting in a room, but you can also underdo it. The thing is to get a good medium to where, you know, you're always going to be over the amount that you need. Typically, a normal bedroom would need 2 60 watt light bulbs, and that would be more than enough. But in addition to that, and you could probably think about your own home where you have the ceiling light, but you don't want to use that ceiling light. You'd prefer to use a floor lamp instead. So again, that's just more light fixtures to produce different results. So when you're coming to the design of, say, a residence, you're primarily going to be looking at those different effects that you can get from lighting, rather than providing strictly that minimum amount of light bulbs, 60 watt per light bulbs, for your light fixtures. Okay, but I was just showing you that because it is there. That is what we use in certain situations, especially if it comes to areas that need to be brighter. We might more or less use that task lighting formula to make sure we have enough lighting. Okay, so I know that was probably a little bit confusing, but let's get back to the task of our actual light fixtures, which will be on the next video.